I'm Stanley Farrar.
And I'm Robert Farrar.
And I am the same person who always introduces myself last, Joshua Farrar.
Basically, the news cycle has been taken over by a corrupt political campaign trying to destroy America.
3 guesses which one it is. At most, you'll need 2.
On the radio this morning, I was listening to the news, and they were talking about how the protesters in Houston were going through saying, "We count all the votes. Trump is trying to steal the election." Except for the fact that all the evidence goes the other direction.
Yeah. Like, let's see. There was cases of the poll workers ruining ballots in Arizona. There was cases of ballots that were unregistered being smuggled in Minnesota.
There's evidence of ballots being smuggled in Michigan. There's evidence of ballots being smuggled in Wisconsin. There's
and then there's Georgia.
Georgia, yeah.
Who keeps their ballots in a room with a pipe?
Well, let's just take and put these ballots right under this leaking water pipe right over here. I'm sure that'll be the best place to save them.
That explains a great deal of why it's taken Georgia so long to count their ballots.
Well, they said it's going to be until Friday.
It should take 12 hours at most. They use these machines for a reason.
But they were the mail-in ballot.
Yeah.
What it smacks of is fraud.
Yeah.
It smacks of fraud. And it was interesting because as the vote tally was going along, and Trump just kept rising and rising and rising, and more states were turning red. And you look at the gambling odds, it's suddenly switched over to where the gamblers thought Trump was going to win. And China's and the very moment that China's stock crashed, they stopped the vote in Georgia, Pennsylvania, and all the other battleground states.
And then when it restarted at 4 a.m. in the morning.
Without any poll watchers. And suddenly, all these ballots vote for nobody but Trump.
Vote for Biden.
Yeah.
I mean, Biden, yeah. Suddenly, nobody but Biden. Only Biden. That's a sheer sign that they faked ballots.
In fact, Michigan has, at this point, counted more votes than they have registered voters.
Yeah.
By a significant margin. A couple 100,000, if I recall correctly.
Well, Trump was at least, if I remember right, he was about 400,000 ahead of Biden. And then suddenly just flip. Oh, it's blue now. He closed a 400,000 gap without Trump getting a single vote. Huh. Well, hardly any votes.
No, none at all.
None. It was 0. That's why it looked so suspicious.
They didn't even do a good job of covering it up.
They did no effort covering it up. And of course, the lawsuits are coming out.
They've got video. Well, Crowder showed some video of them smuggling ballots in.
Yeah, in the middle of the night.
It was obvious that they had hidden ballots away someplace and had to get rid of the poll watchers so that they could take and bring them in.
There was no need to stop the counting otherwise. They could just make people work in shifts.
The thing about it is that as Barnes said, you always take, and if you're going to cheat in an election, you bring in the fake ballots when there's nobody to see them.
Yeah. They even botched that.
The thing about it is they don't think there's any consequences. And if Biden wins, there really isn't.
Yeah, but this is arguably worse than the Watergate scandal.
No, much worse.
Totally. Watergate, they didn't try to actually steal any election.
Mm-hmm. What were they trying
The
to do
thing,
in Watergate again?
Spy on the Democrats because there was a Russian agent in their office.
Ah,
which by the way was proven.
Yeah, that was proven.
they just used the
And
incorrect methods.
Yeah,
blame the intelligence agencies at the time because it wasn't Nixon that sent them in.
Yeah,
He's just the one that fell on his sword for it.
which is admirable to a certain degree, but
it's this sort of thing that revolutions are made of. Look at what happened and what's been happening in Belarus. Because that was a
and
dictator.
Poland,
Nobody voted for him.
and Poland. You may not be aware of this in the States, but Poland has been going through massive riots trying to overthrow their leadership currently.
Really?
No, I didn't know that.
It's been happening for a couple weeks now, so I didn't bother bringing it up. It's huge.
That's fascinating.
I think it's actually sparked over a abortion law debate, but I'm not certain.
Well, I know they had a traditional marriage law passed.
Yeah, but I want to say that it was specifically about abortion, where a law was passed using or force passed that it wasn't even properly voted on, and that's where the riots came from. But I'd have to double check that to make sure.
One of the things that it makes these fake ballots obvious is the fact that they never vote for any more than one candidate.
Yeah,
Yeah, because if you look at the House races, the Republicans are winning a bunch of House races. And some of those are in the states where the obvious cheatings happen. So if they're voting blue for president, stands to reason in this sort of election, not in all elections, I understand. Yet, with how polarized America is right now, most people either vote D straight down the line or they vote R straight down the line.
even then, just the fact that they are only voting for president and leaving all other fields blank, most people don't do that.
No.
Yeah.
At the very least, they'll just Christmas tree the rest of the thing. At minimum.
And as it is, they're only voting. And all the count for everybody else and for Trump didn't move, but Biden's kept going up.
Well,
That's
he said it himself. We've got the biggest voter fraud operation in American history.
he did say that, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And when you figure in they're taking in more ballots than there are people registered to vote, they that there's going to be dead people voting.
All right, but there's dead people that
And
vote every election, to be fair.
Yeah, but it's about time they crack down on it.
They should have
the thing
cracked
about
down on it 40 years ago when they
This
first found out
60.
it was happening.
60 years ago.
Yeah, because that's how JFK got elected.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't the first time the Democrats have done this.
It's
It
just
won't
the
be the
most
last
blatant.
unless it's corrected.
Well, even if it is corrected, they'll just go more undercover.
It has been said that there's nothing to lose for cheating in an election.
Mm-hmm.
Because if they take and get caught, okay, it gets thrown out. It doesn't help them any, but nobody gets punished. But if they succeed, then they get their person in.
They need to investigate them for a racket. Hit them with racketeering charges.
That would be an idea. Hit them with racketeering charges, as I think they need to get them with interfering with a federal election.
Yeah.
That's a crime. That's a federal crime.
Hit him with both federal crimes.
But
So I don't really
go.
know enough about law to see how they're going to draft the lawsuits for this. They're clearly going to do something.
Well, right now the lawsuit's drafted that about in most of the states about them not allowing any poll watchers.
Mhm.
But they could also possibly, if once as they find evidence, build further allegations.
Well, the first step is when they put forth the deal for not allowing the poll watchers, have all the ballots counted without the poll watchers thrown out.
Mhm.
Or, as I've seen some people suggest, have all the ballots counted with a lawyer present.
But see, that's not the point. The whole point is they're supposed to be checking the the chain of custody, and you can't do that once they're open.
Yeah.
So the only
So
option is to just throw them out.
the only option is to throw them out, or declare a new election,
Yeah. Start all over again.
start all over again. And really, that's the only one that the American people would accept as being legitimate, is if they took and just said, okay, all those battleground states, they're going to vote again,
Yeah.
And there would be no mail-in ballot.
only in person.
Otherwise, this is the type of event that sparks civil war.
Yes.
Yeah.
You
On
have
both
to
sides.
you
Whichever
have
side
to
loses.
delicately handle this because you have to make sure that both sides can comfortably say it was not fraud.
Well, right now it's obvious it is fraud.
Yeah, well, but
It
the
is,
Democrats are
but
going to say,
to remedy it, I mean,
if anything happens, the Democrats are going to shout fraud.
yes,
Anything
yes,
except them winning.
but they
So
also the Democrats establishment who yells fraud and the Democrats in general are not the same thing.
that's true.
Yeah, the Democrats in general are more likely.
No, the Democrats in general are less likely.
Who do you think's been rioting?
If they see the entire process starting all over again in a way that they cannot necessarily argue with directly, and there is no evidence of fraud in a redo, then the general populace, not the small sect of extremists that are maybe 10% of the Democrats, won't say anything about it
As far as they're concerned,
unless it's obviously fraudulent. Now,
if
the
they
small subsect will definitely riot, as they've already done when there was no evidence of Republican cheating and only evidence of Democrat cheating, and they still riot. But those small subsect is not the entire group of the Democrats.
But as far as they're concerned, they will feel robbed if they even touch the mail-in ballots.
Yes, they will.
That's
That's
true.
beside the point. But think about it: if the courts throw them all out, and say, "Okay, redo the election," like they did in New Jersey,
Yeah.
there were signs of corruption. They threw the election out, said, "Redo it."
Was that
That was
this
for a
year?
gubernatorial race, right?
Yes, it was. But they had to. But if they take the same approach, it'd be hard for anybody to take and holler about it. But let's face it, the Democrat judges in some of these states are not going to take and go along with that.
If it goes to the Supreme Court, they don't have a choice.
Well,
But is
yeah,
the Supreme Court reliable?
It hardly matters at this point because it's going to go to the Supreme Court one way or the other. The response may not be what we hope from the Supreme Court, but I am firmly convinced that this will end up in the Supreme Court.
Barnes, who, like I said, is not a big fan of Coney Barrett, believes that if it goes to the Supreme Court, it'll either be 5-4 or 6-3.
By the way, Robert Barnes, American lawyer / pundit. You can look him up on YouTube. He oftentimes teams up with Viva Fry, a lawyer.
Oh, he's that guy.
But what?
He's that guy. That guy's quite blunt about his opinions for a lawyer.
Very blunt about his opinion for a lawyer. But he is a big name lawyer.
Yeah, that he is.
And he thinks that getting the states, getting the congressmen to throw out the ballots is the best approach.
I agree. Throwing out the ballots is the best approach.
How do you get the congressman to do it then?
Everybody contact their congressman and demand that this corrupt election be thrown out, and that the state delegates appoint a president.
But let's be honest here. Things are going to get worse before they get better.
Yeah. There's no plus side to this. One of the most positive things, and I will probably get kicked off of YouTube for saying it.
Do we even have a large enough audience to report you?
What?
Do we even have a large enough regular audience to report you?
Well, the bot may catch it.
Fair enough.
But
we can edit it out if we have to.
Getting kicked off of YouTube for something like this is admirable. Besides, we can just switch over to Odysee.
It's a badge of honor.
It's a badge of honor. Odysee. It's a YouTube alternative that's working its way up. I actually found out about it through the existence of a channel called Upper Echelon Gaming, which is an interesting site. Well, which is an interesting creator, but he's mostly gaming news. What?
What about Rumble?
I don't know anything about Rumble.
I may have to take and sign us up for both of them.
Yeah.
But
and we can leave this in the episode so that everyone knows it.
But the one positive thing this may come out of it is the fact that it may actually force a lot of people who are very just floating along in their lives to take up arms and lay these communist wastrels in the street in a pool of blood.
You're right. You might just get kicked off of YouTube for that. It's a strong opinion right there.
But you notice I never actually promoted it. Or even suggested doing it. I just said that's one of the positive outcomes that could possibly come out of it.
Oh my.
I know it's a fine line, but
that line is both thin and blurry, and I don't think it will protect us.
So you're saying you're going to have to bleep me?
See, I could play around with editing and see if I can turn you into a silhouette and distort your voice. I don't think anyone will buy it, but it'll be funny.
Just for that section, yeah.
I don't know if I've got the editing skills to pull it off, but it'll be fun to check.
Basically speaking, though, our founding fathers believed that every so many years there should be a revolution.
Yeah.
To put down the corrupt politicians that get embedded into the system. And we really haven't had a revolution since the Civil War.
And that one.
Uh, yes and no. You think about it, while there was a revolution between the states, there was also a revolution within the government to where all the powers that had been running things for ages, well, since Jackson, and took and lost their power.
Well,
Well,
that was
the Civil
great.
War was not a pleasant process. No one can deny it changed the country for the better.
Abraham Lincoln, though, was not. He had
Abraham
a strong.
Lincoln is one man.
I know, but he was the head, and he also had a tendency to violate people's constitutional rights.
Yes,
Oh,
he was
I'm
he
go
he
on.
was neither perfect nor was he all that great as far as the president goes. However, no, like I said, no one can deny that the Civil War itself changed the country for the better.
I will also admit that unlike presidents since the 1960s, Abraham Lincoln fought to win.
That's true.
Now, see, now there's another issue when it comes to an insurgency. The Democrats are notorious for giving up just because it's taking too long, or because it's a little irritating, or it might take some effort.
They succumb to war weariness very easily. But most of that's
Yeah,
because none of them have actually been through any real hardship, being
and
mostly rich kids.
so being that the majority of the Democrat Party and the majority of the rioters are that class, it's the white collar class, it's the ruling class, the the mu- uh, the t- uh, the tea at the country club.
Well, the Democrats are the Wall Street Party.
Yes, and they accuse the Republicans of being that, but it's actually them, and has been for longer than I've been alive.
The Republican Party is not the party of the rich. The Republican Party is the party of two things: individual liberties and minor selfishness. And we are very good at those things because they are connected to each other.
Actually, that's what the Republican Party used to be. It's now has spread such a wide net that
It can't possibly hold what it's got.
no,
Yeah,
Right now, it's the party of the anti-Democrat. Let's be honest.
yes,
That's what
that
it.
it is the refuge of the anti-democrat. That is not necessarily what the party itself is.
the
Now,
party
it,
the
it,
party
it's
leadership,
it's due for some
ex,
massive change here soon, just
except
like the Democrats
for
are.
except for for Trump and those that are that float into to positions with him. The vast majority of the Republican Party are no different than the Democrats. They're a bunch of communists that are looking for power.
Mhm. There are the two highest profile Republican senators that I actually like a great deal are Ted Cruz and Dan Crenshaw.
Cotton's pretty good too.
I don't know much about Cotton, so I can't give an opinion on
He's part of that same group, kind of the anti-squad.
it.
But okay, I like those guys too. But two of the guys you just mentioned are from Texas,
Yeah.
and if they ran for office, oh, we don't want another cowboy in there. I find that highly offensive whenever they do that.
The last cowboy got them a lot of votes, so I mean, well, no, not the last cowboy. Johnson got them a lot of votes. The other cowboys did. Actually, yeah, the last cowboy did get them a lot of votes. What am I talking about? Bush wasn't very popular.
And he wasn't really a Texan either.
Where was he from?
New Hampshire or someplace up there. It was one of the northeastern states. that he was actually born and raised at. Yeah, he owned a ranch in Texas. Even owned a baseball team.
Reminds me of a conversation I had recently where I was talking to a guy and explaining the Alamo and the history surrounding it. And he asked me how I knew all this stuff. I said, "What do you mean? This is just basic Texas history. Everyone who goes to school in Texas has to know this. Granted, I didn't go to Texas schools, but."
Well, I actually did. And
The thing about it, you did happen to take and grow up as a child of a Texas native, though.
Yeah. It's I just basically gave him the reason that of why I know all of it, and then countercutted it by admitting the fact that I was neither a Texan nor did I go to Texas schools, and I'm just a nerd who knows things.
No. If you, it could be argued that you hold dual citizenship. After all, I'm from the greatest nation in the world, Texas.
So is Granddad.
Mm-hmm. And so is your grandmother. There. And your great grandparents. And see, I'm not above the notion if this corrupt organization completely falls apart, or I have no problem with secession.
see, I saw something really funny on that, actually. Somebody had dropped the idea of secession, and in response, somebody else said, "No, with this corruption, we take it all."
Well, just look at the red counties.
Almost the entire U.S.
Yeah. The only thing that isn't red is the cities and the areas surrounding them.
And see that's such a fragile, weak group of people. I know they hate being told that, but think about it. Look what happened last time there was a major power outage in New York.
Panic.
They took and looted the stores. They killed each other. They took and tore the city apart just because the power was out for a few days.
So basically, what they're doing now, just for a different.
Yeah, same thing.
What it's boiled down to is the fact that big cities at this point, it's definitive. They're a failed experiment. We need to dismantle them and scatter into small towns.
No, we need to wind Black Lives Matter and Antifa up and let them burn themselves down.
Oh, they'll do that on their own. That's kind of the process of dismantling.
Yeah, we don't even have to lift a finger. Just let them do it.
Just wall them
Just
off and keep them in.
Just rile them up.
Josh, that would make the biggest ghetto in the world, by the way.
It wouldn't be a singular ghetto. It would be multiple ghettos, because you've got New York and Chicago and LA and San Diego and Washington, D.C. at this point.
Yeah, but Washington, D.C.
Dallas.
is basically connected by a long, continuous chain of cities to New York.
Now, see, if Trump had been what they claimed he was, he would have just walled those cities off and dumped rice and gas into them.
Why the rice?
Because rice is lethal.
Or cyanide gas.
Oh, I thought you said rice, space, and space, gas.
No, ricin.
Okay, rice and gas, not rice and gas. Okay.
No. If he had been what they claim he is, he's just a Nazi. Well, then he would have done that. He would have walled them off and killed them.
Or send them to
probably would have been
concentration
better
camps to
for
work
it.
for the state.
Yeah. Well, that's the Soviet method, not the Nazis' method.
The Nazis did it to the Jews. Final
They killed
solution.
more.
The final solution was exactly that. The final solution.
That's true. After they couldn't get them to work anymore, they because they were too feeble, they killed them. But he obviously isn't what they claim he is, or he would have done these radical things. He would have declared a state of emergency, called in the army, declared martial law, and all these cities that were rioting would be wiped out.
And then new people would be moved in.
And new people would have been moved in.
Or in the
he
case of
didn't do
places
it.
like Detroit, they would have been disassembled because there's nothing to move in there.
Like I said, but he didn't do it. He didn't do that. He didn't declare national. He didn't declare a state of emergency. He didn't declare martial law. He didn't send the troops in, and he could have done it legally. He could have done all that.
Other presidents have done it.
Yeah, other presidents have done it. I'm sorry, every major northern city that's run by a Democrat could be in burning ashes as today if he had been what they claimed he was.
And the really sad thing is, we'd be a better nation for it.
Well, that's probably true, but
It's a sad truth. It's one that I wish wasn't true.
Yeah,
but it is.
Yeah, you figure that if he had moved in the troops, taken a declared martial law, and taken over these cities, they would have been screaming he's a dictator, which they're screaming that anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I personally thought one reason why he didn't take and declare martial law was because he wanted to get reelected. But if they're going to cheat him out of it, he might as well go ahead and declare martial law and do it.
Yeah, especially since they're still rioting.
They're still rioting.
Put down the riots.
If I recall correctly, the president can't be replaced in a time of martial law or a time of crisis like that.
The Constitution's suspended.
Yeah.
And no election can be held.
And the more they riot, the more that's a viable option on the table for him.
So wait, hypothetically speaking, couldn't he... Okay, and I know this is kind of dirty in its methodology, but just call for the Emergency Powers Act and then call for a re-election. Because it suspends the Constitution. It basically goes his way. He could say that this is a crisis, do the Emergency Powers Act, suspend the Constitution, and then call for a re-election.
Theoretically, he could, but doing so would lose him most of his votes.
According to Bannon, he could take and declare a violation of the 14th Amendment because of them of all this cheating, and declare the whole vote invalid and a new election as it is.
Yeah, that's even without the martial law.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't know if Bannon's right, but...
Well, Barnes said he was right, but no president has ever done it.
Well, maybe he should be the first.
Because he said that the two constitutional acts that he mentioned were ones that were designed specifically to keep the states from preventing slaves from voting. So that they were enacted because putting in fake ballots is taking and
cheating someone out of a vote,
nullifying people's votes.
Yeah.
And so with that being the case, yes, there is a constitutional amendment that says he can just declare the whole thing invalid and declare a redo.
And probably should.
He won't, though.
He probably won't.
Probably won't. But he
He's
probably
wanting the
should.
courts to do it. He wants the courts to do it.
Because that would make it seem more legitimate.
Mm-hmm.
It would seem like he's less of a tyrant that way.
Yes. Even though the Democrats, I know Democrats personally that believe that he's a dictator and a tyrant, even though he's never forced his way onto anybody.
Yeah. Which it's amusing how eager people are to declare someone a tyrant when they've never seen a tyrant before.
Except for the fact we've seen tyrants.
Gavin Newsom,
Who's that?
governor of California.
He's a tyrant.
He's one of the biggest tyrants in the U.S. right now.
Okay.
And
But counter question, Robert. How
executive
many
orders.
what percentage of Californians have actually seen Gavin Newsom?
Actually seen him?
Actually seen
versus
him.
Been under his heavy hand during
Yes,
the coronavirus?
actually seen him.
A lot of them have seen images and pictures.
But how many of them have actually seen him?
I have no idea. How am I supposed to know? I'm not from California.
Because I can guarantee you it's less than 10%. Which means that more than 90% of Californians have never seen their tyrant. So therefore, my point still stands.
Well, Michiganders, how many of them do you think have seen their tyrant?
Which one?
Probably
Their
less than
governor.
2%.
Wait, yeah. For some reason, I was lumping the mayor of Chicago in there too.
Well,
That's Illinois.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but that's
I know.
Illinois.
Got a lot of tyrants.
Oh, we do. We have a lot of tyrants. They're all the Democrat Party.
Well, the Democrat Party is the party of tyranny.
Yes. And the interesting thing is that, okay, every person that takes and goes into the U.S. military swears an oath to uphold the Constitution and defend it from all enemies, foreign and domestic. The fact is,
our military leadership is full of a bunch of sellouts.
So our military leadership.
What I'm getting out of this is the things that the governors have been doing technically qualifies as domestic abuse.
They are enemies of the U.S. Constitution domestically, and veterans are not removed from the oath.
I thought it was always kind of understood that they were.
Never has been.
You're
for one thing, they can
definitely still under the oath when you get out.
What?
I was saying you're definitely still under the oath when you get out.
Yeah, because you'd be called back.
You can be called back up to, what, 10, 12 years after you get out? More?
8 years.
So you're saying a bunch of military veterans have an obligation this goes through to revolt?
Yes.
Yes.
And the U.S. military has the obligation to revolt. As does the National Guard. Under the oaths they took, if they took them seriously, they should be looking at...
Actually, so does the Space Force.
Yes.
The only one that doesn't is the Coast Guard, because they're not real military.
The Space Force wouldn't even exist if it weren't for Trump.
I'm not sure whether the Coast Guard takes the same oath or not.
They don't. They're not. Well, for the one thing, they're not military. And for another thing, they're not under the Department of Defense.
So technically speaking, under the oaths and restrictions that that the military is given, the veterans should be planning a coup to overthrow the government, because to reinstate the Constitution, which means taking out by force these tyrants and the Democrats in Congress.
And a great deal of the Republicans, too, actually.
And several of the Republicans, yes.
You mean the majority of the Republicans?
All the rhinos, anyway. Any of them that favor any position that violates the U.S. Constitution. Gun control is one of them. See, if Biden takes and does what he says and starts confiscating guns, and the country ought to have taken not only throw him out, they need to bury him.
On a side note, am I the only one who got a kick out of the clip where he introduced his granddaughter as his son that's dead?
I didn't see that one.
So yeah, there's a clip. It was like it was done about 2 days ago is when I saw it, where he was at a little rally thing. Biden was, and he introduced his granddaughter as his deceased son, Beau Biden.
That is just cringeworthy.
It was.
Is that better or worse than Trunash Shaba the Pressure?
Oh, I don't know. That is. He's done so much gibberish lately. Well, he confused his wife for his sister.
He is not mentally sound enough to even be in any office.
Well, that's one reason why they think that Pelosi is pushing so hard on increasing the ability of the Congress to declare the president incompetent and remove him from office.
Mm-hmm. So they can just place whoever they want on the throne.
No, the vice president would go.
Which would be Kamala Harris.
Which is effectively whoever they want, because they did a lot of maneuvering to get her there.
Well, the vice president, according to the U.S. Constitution, has to be in agreement with it.
Mm-hmm.
And if they declare Biden incapable, the Constitution says that if she and the cabinet declare that the president is mentally or incapacitated in any form, and he objects and says he can still do the job, then it goes to the Congress, and you have to have 3/4 of both houses of the Congress to remove him from office.
3/4, not 2/3.
Okay, I guess it is 2/3.
Super majority is usually 2/3.
I believe it's you're right. It's 2/3.
Based on the 2/3 compromise.
But just the very notion of there's no way that the Republicans are going to vote to take and give them the authority to remove Biden from office and put Kamala Harris in.
Yeah.
Well, it depends. If they're spineless, then absolutely they.
I think after all this cheating, that even the spineless ones are going to kick back.
You made your
After
bed, now
all,
lie in it.
the spineless ones kicked back and got what's her face on the Supreme Court after what they did to
true.
The previous guy. I forget the name of it at the moment. Yeah,
and
Kavanaugh,
the Republicans control the Senate. But what Pelosi's trying to do is set up a committee in the House so it doesn't go to the whole House to make the decision. That only goes to that committee, and that committee makes the decision for the House.
Yeah, no one with a brain would agree to that.
They have the majority, so they only have to get a majority to agree to that.
But Pelosi is not popular in the House, not even with her own party.
Why wasn't she? Was she up for election this year?
Yeah, I won it with a landslide.
Oh, I forgot.
But
Cheaters.
as Fox News pointed out, she struggled to get the House position, the Speaker position, last time. She might not get it this time.
How do they?
Depends on
How
how
do they
well she can
choose
rally
the
her
Speaker
base.
of the House?
Hmm?
How do they choose the Speaker of the House?
Majority
The
vote.
majority
They-
vote of
They
everybody.
nominate someone and then vote on it.
Technically, they don't even have to be part of the majority party.
Interesting. It just always will end up being someone from the majority party.
Yeah.
Hypothetically speaking, they could go without having a speaker.
Yeah. That just removes one of the possible fallbacks to if the president dies.
Like Pelosi needs to be in that chain.
It has been theorized that what Pelosi wants to do is make it to where they remove Biden for being incompetent. She handpicks the vice president, and then they remove Kamala for being incompetent, and then the other one steps down, and Pelosi becomes president.
That seems really complicated.
I said it's been suggested. I didn't say
It's also a long shot. It is a
Yeah,
super
really
long shot. So the more
Right.
efficient way to do it would be to have Biden declared incompetent, have Kamala impeached because let's be honest, she's going to do something stupid, and then have the next person in line Arkancided.
Yeah, that would be the easiest way.
That's still not easy.
Significantly easier. And I don't know
Think
about
about
you
it.
guys, if I was playing a grand strategy game by the name of Crusader Kings 2 or 3, I would take the long shot.
With Crusader Kings, everybody dies.
Yeah, it's part of the fun of the game. A lot of interesting new choices in Crusader Kings 3, by the way. Although completely unrelated.
This is a bit off to the side, but do you think? What do you think of the possibilities? And we're talking real conspiracy stuff here.
Oh, these are always fun.
What?
I said, oh, these are always fun.
That the reason they stopped counting and started cheating so heavily was because China was losing a fortune in stocks, and they were ordered to take and stop do something to prevent that.
You know, I think that's actually more likely than many are willing to admit.
Than Pelosi's power grab. Than the Pelosi power grab.
That is significantly more likely than the Pelosi power grab conspiracy.
Well, we already know that Biden is in the pocket of China.
Yeah.
And we know that the Clintons are in the pocket of China. But we don't know how many other members of the Democrat machine are in the pocket of Biden.
Well, we know that
Biden, China.
We know that the probably most influential person in the Democrat machine is not in the pocket of China. George Soros is a Nazi, and Nazis will not tolerate communists. So he is not in the pocket of China. We can tell that for sure.
You know, it's actually kind of funny, I think, how the totalitarians run a capitalist-style competition.
It is a little weird, yeah.
But the thing about it is George Soros has been trying to turn the world communist almost ever since the Nazis collapsed.
That's because the
Pretty
Nazis
sure he was going for socialist.
See, that's the whole point. Is the communists are basically socialists and vice versa. Mm-hmm. It's a capitalist style competition. It's whoever it's vying for who will be on top.
Now it's possible. I don't know for certain, but it's possible that George Soros may have a lot of money invested in China.
That's true.
He is a billionaire. Or sorry, a billionaire.
Multiple times over. And
I think he has something of like a net worth about $5 billion.
And he had to get the rest of his money from somewhere after the Jew money ran out.
yeah. When he couldn't sell out his own people to the Nazis, he now had to take and come up with some way to take and make money, and investments is one of the easiest ways.
Yeah.
Now, you realize that what I said earlier could have got us banned, but this can get us banned too.
It's fine.
We're daring to speak against George Soros.
It's fine. We've got other platforms to fall back on.
But
oh, by the way, Odysee is spelled like Odyssee. It's
send me a text with it so that I can look it up.
Okay.
We can put a link to it.
Oh, we'll take and promote. I'm out to promote us any way I can. And
see, have you tried taking the advancement exam?
The what?
The advancement exam.
Not in 26 years.
My. Some people may possibly get that joke.
But it also tells how long I've been out.
Yeah. Clearly, Robert doesn't find that joke nearly as funny as we do.
How you get promoted in the military by taking an advancement exam?
Well, I know that. Doesn't mean I found it all that funny, but I knew it.
He said he wanted to get promoted any way he could.
But when you take a look at it, okay, we're on archive.org. We don't have quite as many hits there as we do here, which is interesting because my sermons have a lot more hits there than on YouTube.
Well, the sermons are arguably more important there as well.
And it's like I've got almost 300 views on one video on archive.org.
Yeah.
And I grant you, in the grand scheme of things, that's nothing. But compared to our little fishbowl, that's major viewership.
Let's see, we've got what? Apart from our immediate family, we've got maybe one dedicated person who continually watches this stuff.
No, because we've been actually going up in viewership.
Have we? Because I think
until we get banned. Yeah.
Yeah. I was pretty sure we've got like a regular 5 people, and at least one of those is technically me making sure that the video uploaded properly. One of those is you saying what my edits were after I already posted it, and one of them is probably Jason.
Not this last one. I don't know how many views it has, but the one before that had almost 30 views, and I never watched it.
Oh. Well, that one is also an outlier, and you can't use outliers as the standard.
But I was noticing that they seem to be steadily gaining in viewership, but the last one didn't do too good.
Well, the last one's also been out for, what, a week? A little less?
Mm-hmm.
It was the one before that one that did particularly poorly, though, if I recall correctly. But we also missed a week before we uploaded it.
But see, we have a lot more freedom than most people anyway, because of the fact we're not monetized.
Yeah. So we kind of say what we want.
What are they going to do? Demonetize us?
What are they going to do? Make me go back to my normal job that I never quit and am still actively doing?
But
oh,
like I said,
no.
We're on the the strange thing is I was once monetized. Then they
Not by the time
demonetized
you
me.
invited us to do this with you.
What?
Not by the
No,
time
it
you
was.
invited the two of us to do this with you.
No, I'd already been demonetized long before you for before y'all came on. But it's because I don't have a big enough viewership.
Yeah.
Of
And
course, as
religious
controversial as
content
this,
is a little taboo anyway.
yeah,
On
yeah,
YouTube,
that's true.
yeah.
But as controversial as this one's getting to be.
Well, this is a side effect of not having much news to cover, so we're just saying what we want at this point.
Well, if you like today's episode where we pretty much just said what we wanted, feel free to hit the like button. If you disliked it, feel free to hit the dislike button. Also, feel free to show your support and say any more conspiracy theories in the comments, down in the comments below. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and ring the bell so you can get notifications when a new episode drops. And until then, see you next time.
What if we impose like curse letter tactics and tell people that if they don't pass on the video to 5 other people, they'll be cursed?